All right, so I called for this study session between Brian, and Lori. I know that there was a contract that was negotiated. It was brought before us. And every time I asked, I believe Councilman Wanso asked, Councilman Ahmad asked, I think almost everybody asked, where's the money coming from? So I picked up the phone and I called Brian from Plant Moran and I said, I'd like to meet with you. And he said, let's do it. I called Brian Sneer, said, I'd like to meet with you. He said, let's do it. And I didn't tell them both, they were both meeting with each other. And so here comes Brian Sneer and here comes Brian from Plant Moran.
It's like, Brian, nice to meet you. Brian, nice to meet you.
And they're like, Brian, and I brought Councilman Ahmad. And I said, what is going on here? Because too many times we have these discussions in public and everybody's kind of giving different information. I had Brian Sneer bring the contract and hand it to Plant Moran. Plant Moran said, I will give you my evaluation on this. And so Brian evaluated it from Plant Moran, and so did Brian from the police department. And so, we just got to say Brian S. and Brian P. So Brian P., said he did his look into this. I then heard from Shannon, our former comptroller, and said, you need to reach out to Lori. There were so many moving parts in here. And so then I met with Lori. Lori said, and these are things that we have to realize is sometimes we forget about the pension board. What's happening on the back end to the city. Because we can't exhaust our pension board and then come back to the people that are retired and say, we can't afford to give you any money. We can't do that to people. We don't want people that have been with us for 10, 15 years say, you might not have a pension. Obviously, everybody's going to be like, why the hell am I here? And so I would like to hear, I want to make for full disclosure, according to Shannon and Plant Moran, nobody from finance was a part of this negotiation. The mayor was not at this. Nobody from finance was at this. The chief of staff wasn't at this. Nobody from the pension board was at this. It was two attorneys, Roger, one other person, and then whomever the union had. Is that correct, Brian?
So that is mostly correct. On our first negotiation meeting, the HR director, our previous HR director, Cameron Egley, was at our first meeting. For whatever reason, afterwards, he was not present. But afterwards, it was Chief Swope, Roger Farina, Ken Wilson was the city's negotiation team.
Can you grab the mic when you guys completely take it out? So anytime you're speaking, just hand it over.
Sounds good.
Thank you. But so Cameron was made aware, you said?
Cameron was made aware on every email chain that I was on in regards to negotiations. Cameron was on as well.
Okay.
But Cameron only attended the first meeting.
And never went back?
Correct.
But were the final agreement between the union, who was in that room?
It was our previous chiefs, Kevin Swope, Roger Farina, and Ken Wilson.
Okay. Who was the last one?
Ken Wilson. He was the city's negotiating attorney.
What law firm is he from?
That I do not know, sir.
You know who Ken Wilson works for, Mariana? Perkins Law Group. Okay. And so can you just kind of break down what this contract says?
We might be here a while.
I mean, just give a quick breakdown. You don't have to tell me every detail by line item. I mean, I know there's a 4% increase if you're working.
Yes. So the primary economics of the contract are as follows. It will be a 5% increase every year of the contract, which is a 3-year contract. So it would be 15% over 3 years of a salary increase. It would also be that the city agreed to match our existing MERS account, which is our healthcare retirement account. Currently, the employees put in 3%. The city matches with a 1% match. The city agreed in this contract to match us with an equal 3%.
What the?
So we would be putting in 3. The city puts in 3%.
That is amazing.
We also have
a police officer now.
We also have a retirement health care stipend, which was currently in our contract already.
Yeah.
The city agreed to up it to 60% of our retiree post-retirement health care premium, up to a maximum of $7,000. So when we retire, because I don't know if the council knows, but in 2014, everybody 2014 and on lost retirement health care.
Yeah.
So these two items are our retirement health care. So the city would be providing up to a $7,000 premium every year in retirement to subsidize our premiums in retirement. The city also agreed to add 2 holidays to our current holiday that we get paid for at the end of the year, which would have been Juneteenth, and also Eid would have been added to our holidays. Also, the city agreed to, on working holidays, if an employee works the holidays, they would be paid for the following holidays: Eid, Independence Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day, meaning they would make time and a half on those holidays. They would get overtime to work those holidays. One of the other things that the city agreed to was giving a stipend to anybody holding one or more of the following, which would be evidence technician, range staff, honor guard, or lockpicking school. So that would just be a stipend to anybody that holds those certifications, one or more. It's not per, it would be a total. So even if one person held all 4, it would be just a $1,500 stipend per officer. The city wanted to get rid of 2-man cars on our midnight shifts. Currently, our contract states that all midnight officers shall have the ability to ride in 2-man scout cars. They can have a partner in their vehicle. The city wanted to remove that language and in lieu of that offered a $4 an hour shift premium for all midnights officers between the hours of 18:45 and 06:45. Sorry, I'm just reading. The city also, in that same section of the contract, wanted to eliminate our minimum staffing in the contract. Currently, we have minimum staffing where we have to have so many officers on the road, in which point that overtime is called in to make sure that there are enough adequate officers on the road for the citizen safety as well as the safety of our officers. The city proposed and was not willing to budge off the fact of removing that section from our contract. So all minimum staffing would be removed. One of the other big economicals was going to be the furlough. Our furlough would roll over. Currently, it's a use it or lose it system where we have to use our furlough by the end of our hiring year. So by our anniversary date, we must use our furlough, otherwise we lose it. The city proposed to let us roll that over, and anything over 244 hours would be paid out at the second paycheck of January every year. The other primary economical was just a 1% increase in what would be considered a senior PO bump in conjunction with our uniform allowance. So at 8 years, you would get a 3% bump, which we previously had a 2% bump. So anybody that hits 8 years of service would get an additional 1% on top of their for their uniform allowance for that year. And that's the gist of the economicals to the city. There's a lot of language changes in here, but that's the gist of the economicals.
Brian, other than, from hearing you, other than the minimum staffing, which I don't even think you guys should be negotiating, I just want you to know, just give you a quick breakdown. Dearborn turned down the entire charter where they've ran an election, put it on the ballot, had people vote on it. They spent tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a new charter, paid these commissioners that showed up to a meeting every week, and it came down to minimum staffing in the charter. And the police department went out and asked everybody to vote it down, and it lost. It was voted down because it came down to minimum staffing, because the law changed. But if the charter or the negotiation was still minimum staffing, if it was in the charter that you had to have minimum staffing in the police department, then you had to honor it. But if they negotiated it out, then you can no longer add it back, and the police department fought that. So other than minimum staffing to the city, I don't see like where the city asked for them to negotiate. You get what I'm saying? So like, and which is a great thing for the police department, right? Anybody that's looking at this contract is just like, this is absolutely amazing. I would tell you, I mean, obviously I'm not trying to negotiate against the city, but for the protection of the police department, I would definitely not get rid of minimum staffing. And because what happens when you are short on staff? And then they're like, well, it's not in your contract, and if I only have 2 officers on the road today, you guys have to continue to work on that. You know, or I don't have to give you overtime no more. We're just going to take the 3 officers today. I'm not going to bring on this 4th guy because I want to be, you know, there's no such law as minimum staffing. So we might want to think of that. That's just me kind of speaking out loud. I don't know the gist of everything, but that's just my food for thought.
Council Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Just when reading all this. Did Kevin Swope, Roger Farina, Cameron and Roger Farina, were they authorized to work out such a contract before they went in front of a pension board or?
They didn't go before the pension board.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Were they authorized to negotiate? Because
To be honest with you, sir, that I don't know. I mean,
Mariana,
You don't know. Well, I want to hear from,
If you don't mind, Council Chair,
Yeah.
just to answer your question about minimum staffing, I wish you were in the negotiation room because we spent hours on minimum staffing and the city's negotiation team, due to the fact that minimum staffing is no longer a mandatory subject to bargaining. It means that it can't be bargained. It doesn't mean that it has to be taken out of a contract.
Correct.
But it can't be bargained. And that was many hours of our discussion, trying to find other ways of keeping some facet of minimum staffing in there. And ultimately, the city, it was an absolute no in that.
Council Chair.
and I would believe that they threw the kitchen sink because of that minimum staffing.
I believe with Councilman Bay doing that, you should not have given that away. Is there a number where it says how many people are allowed to be on the streets on a daily basis? Do you guys have a number you're working off of?
Council Chair, it seems like we're negotiating a contract here. We're just here
No,
to
no.
see if that
I
contract
know,
is
I'm just
doable or not. I don't think we should be even discussing this, to be honest with you. Let's just to see if this contract is doable with the city or not, so we can have a better idea if we can, which way to vote on it. I think this is the best way.
I know, but in my mind, the way I'm looking at it is, what is the reasoning for this to kind of go into play? Was it because of that key point of minimum? Like, I want you to know the history behind minimum staffing in a police department, so crucial. And now I'm starting to get things like,
No, I'm with you, but I mean, he can explain it, but I don't think we should give our input on it.
the question is to the administration I had, and I'm honestly, now that people tell me to know, were they even authorized to negotiate on a contract?
nobody answered that question.
Council Chair.
So this contract should be done on arrival.
No, I wouldn't think so. They already, I mean, they negotiated in
Then
bad
the ci-
faith. The
the-
police department didn't.
Right, but the city negotiated in bad faith, and we don't have,
Well, we don't know. That's what we haven't heard from Brian yet. Haven't heard from Brian yet. Yeah, go ahead,
Council Chair,
Brian.
if you don't mind, I have my POAM business agent. He can give you some clarity on minimum staffing if you'd like.
Well, let's hear from Brian, then yes, I would like to. I mean, do you see where I'm speaking here? Is your name Brian too? No. Brian Square.
Good evening. So, as was mentioned earlier, I mean, finance was not a part of any conversation. Did not provide any calculations as part of the negotiation. We didn't, I mean, we knew it was happening, that there was a negotiation going on, but finance had nothing to do with it, was never consulted. That being said, when it was, after it had been signed and was presented to us for our consideration then, or for us to evaluate it at that point, the first question we asked, and at the time, the original budget projections that we had done, the city was looking at a $2 to $3 million deficit for FY26. And our question was, well, how does the city afford this? This is a very generous contract. And not arguing whether it's earned, not earned, I fully support our public safety. It was purely a question of who approved this and was any consideration given to whether or not the city could afford it? And I still don't have an answer to that question. This year is, the current year, FY25, will end in a deficit. The budget that you've been discussing this evening does have a surplus, but there is a very sensitive revenue estimate of $1.5 million for selling of city property, which may or may not happen. I don't know that there is any guarantee or even a a deal that is nearing the end or even halfway through. So if that doesn't happen, the city's looking at a deficit again, and then adding 15% over the next 3 years, plus all of these other items and bumps. I honestly, I don't know what you're going to cut in order to make this work. So I don't have any calculations in front of me to say, well, this portion of it is this much money and this portion is that much money. I'm merely here to talk about the city's overall financial picture. The fact that there doesn't seem to be any consideration given to whether or not the city has the ability to pay this. And so I'm just concerned that there isn't a plan in place to make this a feasible deal for the city.
I have a question. I want to go back, Council Chair, and I'm sorry, same question. This Perkins Law Firm, who authorized them to come and negotiate on behalf of the city?
I think he said Chief Swope was Chief Swope in the room too?
But the chief does not have the authority to call up a firm, tell them I want to negotiate a contract. Either the administration did or the mayor's office, because an attorney just can't show up and negotiate.
Well, he's their negotiator. We've been paying Perkins Law.
No, we've been paying Makula.
Correct. For police and fire, Perkins Law was brought in, I believe, a year and a half ago or so to negotiate those contracts because he has experience particularly with those unions.
But who authorized them to negotiate this contract?
The Corporation Council appointed him to be the labor attorney for these two contracts, technically it's more than two unions, but these two departments.
But again, you're telling me you don't know who authorized to
The
negotiate?
Corporation Council did
So where is he
2
at?
years ago. So again, Perkins Law has
Not 2
been
years
with
ago.
us
They've been with us for a year. Last
a
year,
year and a half, something like that. But yeah, they were brought in with fire, the
negotiations were being
original
done by
negotiations.
Makula. It wasn't being done by Perkins. And then I remember we had the resolution to approve Perkins, and they've been in our backup. Like I see their, what we've been paying them, but
Yeah, they
reality
started
is-
with fire last
But if he
year.
has that much experience, he wouldn't have a financial background, have finances or anything available or present?
That I don't know.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the city can afford this?
No, I already answered that question to the council. Again, I wasn't aware that this was happening. This was I believe it started during my maternity leave days. And normally the negotiating party on behalf of the city is the controller, the HR director, and the chief in this case would have been there. Those would be the three people that are typically signing off on documents.
I mean, this is so embarrassing. Because what it seems like, it doesn't seem like, what it is, it was a negotiation in bad faith. And what it is I feel like was to potentially receive some type of benefit and just throw the kitchen sink, or could it be that we just want to see this, all the finances in the city say, we want to see a Trumbull go into receivership and throw every other contract back on the table? Like, we're like, what? There's nothing here that I can describe.
Right.
And look, Brian from Platte Moran is being very, very cautious. I understand why, about what he wants to say. The truth is, the conversation him and I had was, the city's absolutely nuts if they ever thought they could afford this. Those were the words. The city could not afford this. My conversation with Michelle, absolutely not. You guys can't afford this.
Council Chair?
I just want to say, with the current budget, I agree with what you just said, and I'll own that statement. But if you can cut something, if there is enough to cut, then you could afford it. Everything would be, it's a push and pull. But unless something dramatic happens to the existing budget, no, this is not affordable.
Council Chair.
Yep.
President Sneers, my understanding, this contract affect the command personnel too as well, correct? So it's not just, so this is across the police department.
That is correct, yes. The command staff has a percent differential above road patrol officers. So any increase we get effectively, they receive as well, yes.
So, Mr. O'Brien, do you take that into consideration too? That's going to affect the whole police department, not just, is that something you looked into too?
Well, it's our understanding, police always follows fire or vice versa, and then they stay, fairly neck and neck. So yes, it was part of the consideration. We didn't calculate what that may cost on the fire
$1
side.
million. You need $1 million from, according to Shannon and Michelle, you'd have $1 million in back pay because you have retro. You need another $1 million. And you don't even have that in the fund balance.
I think for this year, what, was it 2 million for the back pay? For this,
It'd be $1 million for back pay.
just million?
And then you're coming into June for the following fiscal year.
So already in deficit 1.7, so now we're looking about 2.7.
I have a question. What did the city get out of the negotiation?
That's where I wanted to hear from Dave, but from what I believe, it's the minimum staffing. And then what I'm trying to believe, if they eliminate minimum staffing and officers start to leave, and they can say, it's okay, we can afford this because instead of having 45 officers or 50 officers or 90 officers, we can run the city on 30 officers. And then now we can afford that huge pay.
Council Chair.
Yeah.
To answer that question, what the city gained out of this is many language changes. That affects how sick time is used. Minimum staffing was a big one as well. It was primarily language changes.
What about overtime?
In regards to what?
Like, was there anything changed? I know, because I know they went to the 4-4 rule with Margaret Hazlitt and like,
Well, I think a lot of these changes that the city proposed was in an attempt to limit overtime. And as you all are aware, that many of our overtime hours being spent are due to leave works, which are when officers aren't there and they have to be filled. The buyback of the furlough and things of that nature, it was in an attempt to have officers show up to work more, was the city's attempt in that.
The change in the work rules, and some of the tightening up of the work rules is basically what you're saying?
Correct, yeah. Some of the language when it comes to sick time and what that could mean for officers and the ability to work overtime. For instance, if so many sick days are used in a calendar year, the term hours worked would not be applicable anymore, meaning that if an officer called in sick on a Tuesday, they could not work any overtime until they made those sick hours up by effectively working straight time overtime. Then they would be able to start making overtime hours again. So it was an attempt to limit the sick time usage, as well as, I believe, their hope was that people would not use as much furlough because they could get paid out for it.
Because the old council was saying, over and over, Councilman Abdullah, and, our officers need to be paid more, they need to be paid more.
we agree, they do. But so we have to make sure that we can afford it. Can I hear from Dave?
Is this on? It
Yeah.
says it's on.
Yeah, it's all.
I wasn't sure if Dearborn Pioneers are allowed or welcome here, but if that's okay. Class of '84, wondering.
Nice.
So I think there's been a question on the floor that I think there's a lot of this going on.
Can we just give him the microphone?
I didn't know if that was, whatever, sorry. I apologize. So our company represents everybody in this town besides the firemen. I've bargained in this town for Mr. Kupchak and his band of malcontents, Brian and his band of malcontents, and others, right? So we have a significant history of bargaining in this town. You used the term embarrassing, which is frankly what's happened here. We send, which is required by law, a notice of intent to bargain a successor agreement to the mayor's office, and we got responded from Roger and Ken Wilson, right? As Mariana's indicated, Ken Wilson bargains your labor agreements for you on your behalf. Brian and I sat in this room with Cameron and Wilson and Farina and I asked them, are you three authorized to enter into an agreement with us? And they said yes, okay? Normally, I would never ask such a question. We don't pick who the city sends to bargain with us. I don't care who sits over there. It's of no consequence to me. So we bargain with these folks. And the term Brian's looking for, significant concessions were made by the union, one of which you mentioned, which is a big deal. And that's why that contract looks the way it does. You discussed comparability earlier against other cities. That's how we bargain. We do a comparability analysis of the local labor market and who the comps are for Public Act 312, right? and you're behind the comps, which is why this looks the way it did, which is why the one-year agreement that we bargained the last time looked the way it did, because you are way behind, which leads to staffing problems. So, I don't disagree with you or Brian. We bargain with whomever you send us. We don't pick who those people are. Somebody did. That's who we entered into this agreement with. It is an unfair labor practice. The reason we haven't filed that charge is because you can stop bargaining. We're going to go back to mediation. We have no choice. And then we're going to go to arbitration unless we can reach an agreement. But I don't even know, like, who would we be bargaining with? Who would we reach an agreement with? When I bargained for Mr. Kupchak, the controller was there. The human resource person was there.
The comptroller was there, you said?
Yeah, when I bargained the agreement with the DPW group. Controller was there.
DPW.
This is it's old, but that's normally who we expect to see there.
And you
But
asked.
I don't ask questions. I asked Ken Wilson and Farina, okay, sitting in here with witnesses, two of which are now sergeants. Can you enter into this agreement? They said yes. So on we go.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
We follow what the law says. We got to work within that framework. That's how we bargain. We made significant concessions in exchange for some pretty decent money. This does not put you at the top of your comps. You know who they are. You know who the people are leaving here to go to. This is the reason you have staffing problems. It's the money.
Yeah, this is.
So I have a question.
Brian didn't even tell me all that information.
Yeah, so the mayor, you sent the letter to the mayor, and you never got a response from the mayor? You
We
got a
never
response
get
from
we never
Roger?
get a response from the mayor. He ignores our step 4 grievances, that we just go right to arbitration.
He
So
ignores your.
Ignores it all the time. There's 3 or 4 in front of, because Ken Wilson does your arbitrations.
We've never met Ken Wilson.
We've-
He's a
I
nice
know he
fellow.
is.
I duke it out with him all across the state. He's competent. He knows what he's doing. He's a formidable adversary, which is as high praise as I can give. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. We assumed, because I've dealt with him at other places, he knows what he's doing. So,
He's of counsel with the He's an older guy.
Man, I don't care who he's with. He's not here to negotiate anything for us.
anyway, I'm sorry. Councilman Saab, do you have a question? I'm sorry. Was it for them?
Yeah, I'm still kind of confused though. How this contract got negotiated, got set in stone, and nobody seems in the administration to know.
Well, I don't, that's on your side of the fence. I know
Marianne,
Brian
does the-
knows because him and I were there.
Yeah, no, I completely believe you, and I believe Brian. I'm not disputing that.
My question is, Mariana, does the mayor know about this contract?
I believe he does, and again, the people that can't speak on it are Ken Winsell and Roger Farina. I know that there is some back and forth trying to schedule something with them.
No, they just didn't want to do it in a public setting. They wanted it in a closed session.
Correct.
We're
That
not
is-
talking about anybody's personnel, by the way. We're not saying Brian is a bad person.
Again,
Brian's a
I
bad-
don't know where the direction of this meeting was going to go. All I know is that's what happened last week. But really, they're the ones who negotiated on behalf of the city and have the answers to any questions that you might have. So I do recommend that at some point you do talk to them.
Okay, can we phone it?
But yes, I believe the mayor is aware of all of this.
Does the mayor, what's the mayor saying?
He believes in the people that he had appointed to negotiate on his behalf.
So he appointed the people to go negotiate.
Again, I'm pretty sure he's aware of what the attorneys are
No,
doing.
but what I'm saying is, did he tell them to go negotiate?
I don't know that specifics, right? Like typically HR is the lead. I don't know if HR was ever told stop attending. I don't believe that was the case. But that, again, that's all I know. I would advise that you talk to the 2 attorneys that were there in every meeting.
The direction of our city. It is so it's not even like, I used to be so angry. I'm so sad.
I
I'm
agree.
actually so hurt. Like it pains me to see that this is where we've become, where the mayor's not responding to any information. It's not coming to any city council meetings. I mean, like, it's embarrassing. to be honest with you.
So I agree, and I do have two recommendations for the future of the organization and the administration. First of all, you need an HR director that has experience in labor negotiations.
get
We
here
have
for
8
16
contracts
years.
in here that are critical to the functioning of this organization. So you need someone with that experience. We had a great person for it. Again, for $75,000, nobody's going to stay in this organization. I requested a $100,000 salary increase for a future HR director. 2 years ago, we had requested an additional person in the HR department because the reason that Cameron couldn't attend many of these meetings was because he was told the morning of when he had interviews going on for other departments. So one person can't participate in every single aspect of HR that's necessary here. So I know that for some reason, HR has never taken a priority in the needs of this organization, and that's why we've only had 2 people in that department. I recommend investing in it. It affects and touches every single employee's lives and retirees' lives.
Well, I have
One
a
person
question.
can't keep it up.
I have a
Let her
question
finish.
for you.
Let her finish.
No, I know, but this is
I'm
about
done.
HR and controllers. But is it a coincidence that every single year, this month, and go back to the history of the past 4 years, HR has been either let go or fired, and so has the controller. And then you want to use S-Pay as an excuse, and I know it's not.
You can believe whatever you want, but that is the case. And you can know that they're still trying to help us because they're still here trying to keep the organization going and helping the new person transition. So they are in no way ill-intended trying to leave. They're still trying to help and keep the city afloat.
And I don't think
But
he's
it
saying
truly,
I'm not saying the
Employees.
current, I'm saying look back for the past 4 years.
that's not true. Margaret was with us for 3 years.
No,
Yes,
no,
yes.
no.
When Elizabeth left, Margaret stayed with us for the
Elizabeth
entire
was here.
3 years.
There was another lady that came, and she left right away.
Right, when Margaret retired, we tried to transition into somebody that didn't have the qualifications for the position, had no experience with union labor, had no experience with a city environment, who didn't pick up the pace in the 1 year that she had to transition.
You guys,
So
time out. Councilman,
there are
hold on.
administrative issues.
Time
That's
out,
what I'm trying
time
to
out.
explain to you.
Time out. We're not talking HR right now, guys. Let's just hold
Yeah,
on.
we're
Point of order
really
for a
off
second.
subject. I mean, the
We're
way I
like,
look.
we're here. We need to come back. We need to focus.
Read the
And-
last email from the most recent controller, and that would say a lot.
Okay. I just want you to know, the mayor failed this police department in many different ways. But to allow Roger, and I'm sure whoever this other guy from Perkins is, to come in and negotiate on behalf of the city with we pay Plant Moran $25,000 a month. I mean, come. Tell them, you're already paying them. Just tell them to show up. But he failed the men and women in the police department, at least in the patrols department. And the fact that he hasn't responded, the fact that you know that this is not a good deal, like,
Again, I'm not saying it's not a good deal. It's a great deal for the police officers. It's not a good deal financially. But yes, if we had those salary
Okay.
increases, you would staff that department
This is-
probably fully staffed within a year.
I think this is what they don't want to hear. And I'm going to say it. This is what they didn't want us to say. If we did approve this budget, the city would bankrupt. Plain and simple. I had this meeting with a couple of people from some very smart finance departments, and they said if you approve this budget, you will bankrupt the city. Nobody will have jobs. So the reality is, they didn't want to agree to that. Or they didn't want to come here and hear that to your guys' ear, and they didn't want to face it face to face and be able to tell you guys that. So David, I want you to know that they definitely negotiated in bad faith. Obviously, when the city council tries to give an opinion on something, they say it's against the law. You're not allowed to speak. It's against the law. You're not allowed to talk. Many times, I sat in this room, Councilman Wenzel sat in this room where we tried to fight for DPW, we tried to fight for police and fire. They say, you guys can't do that. That's against the law. Yeah, are you familiar with that? Yeah. 3 years ago, I tried to say something for DPW. And they said, one more time, we're going to issue a cease and desist letter. They threatened me with a cease and desist letter. I told them, I'm not going to swear. I already said the F word. I don't, it's the first time I've ever said the F word in 5 years being on city council, 4.5 years. I've never said the F word. But man, this is so embarrassing. I just want you guys to know that Chief Swope failed, Roger Farina failed, and the guy from Perkins failed this police department, including the mayor and anybody in this administration. And that is my opinion. And if I'm going to get interviewed by our city official that interviews people here for
You ain't gonna
what I
interview
said,
Jack.
I don't care. But I'd also like to hear from Lori from the pension board. And I thank you, Lori, for coming here. I know you had a long day.
It's been a long day, but that's
know.
okay. So what is it that you want to know from us?
You and I sat down for almost 2 hours. I want to just
Okay.
basically,
So looking over this contract, there are a few new roll-ins to their FAC, which
I don't know what FAC means, by the way, Lori. You gotta speak English.
their final average compensation for their pension. So everything that they earn every year gets rolled in. And if there's something new that's rolling in or the factor changes, you have to get an actuarial opinion. To me and to our lawyers, it looks like there's new roll-ins. So that would require the city to have an actuarial opinion. Has to be given to you, to the pension board, and there's a 7-day waiting period after that opinion comes back.
So forget the whole contract. You tell me there wasn't even an actuary report done on this, Brian? What are you guys talking about? When we wanted to give DPW the raise, they said we need an actuary report. When we wanted to give TPOAM the raise, we need an actuary report.
You only need by law is if there's new roll-ins or the factor changes. So whatever like they get 2.8%. Times their final average compensation, if that were to increase, or if they have new roll-ins. So these stipends, which I wasn't aware of, would be something new, right? That and the furlough time that they get paid out on.
Did we
would be
request
new.
one for this?
Nobody requested one.
Can we
But,
request one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It has to be, I mean, the city has to request it. We can, they can
Can the
use
city
our
council request
data.
it?
Sure, you have to pay for it.
How much is it?
I could have to ask. And it will also probably require us to give them some more data. Do you want me to get an estimate for you
Yes, please.
on this current, or do you want to wait until
No.
they go back
this
to
is what-
mediation?
This is what, honestly, I don't know.
I have a question, I'm sorry. How many meetings or how many months was this negotiated for?
I believe our first meeting, bear with me one second.
Maddie, can we also pull all the bills for Perkins Law Firm for these negotiations? Yeah, please.
Get the total. I don't think he needs to pull them, like, take them off. If we get the dates.
I need the dates for the police, this police contract that was negotiated. Yep, since they started negotiating on this contract.
Our first sit-down with the city administration was on July 29th. That's when we proposed our initial ask. And we ultimately ratified the contract December 19th. We had at least one meeting each month until then with the city.
You said what day you started?
July 29th,
Well, 5 months.
roughly, yes.
No, this contract was already available in December, right?
This contract was ratified December 19th by the city administration and the
Did you talk about it in
DHPOA.
December?
Yeah,
We ratified it December 19th, yes.
yep. And they never brought it forward.
Yeah, how come they didn't bring it forward?
And I'll tell you why. And this is my opinion. And honest to God, I think what the mayor was trying to do, him leaving, he wanted to bankrupt the city and get it into a receivership by over-exhausting all funds in the city. That way we can't pay our obligations to any department, any employee or anything. Our receivership would come in. And then all contracts would be pretty much liquidated. That was the goal. And I heard that from multiple sources coming. And that's why one of the reasons this contract was delayed, never brought to council for a vote.
I can't speak to
Oh, well, I'm speaking.
that. No,
As an elected
I
official on
understand
this
that,
body,
sir.
I'm speaking.
I understand that. And all I can speak to is that we had many emails, many times that it was asked to put on the agenda, to the point that the POAM drafted an unfair labor practice and was presented to the administration that if it was not placed on the agenda to you, that that would be filed. And it was then placed on the agenda.
You know, I'm kind of like calming down, so I'm coming to my senses. I kind of feel like we still have to give the, I'm not saying give the benefit of the doubt, but I'm saying I want to know why. Maybe the administration has a solution for this. Maybe the mayor and Roger know something, or the guy from Perkins Law, which I thought would have been here today, including Roger. You know, I mean, what is it that they knew that we don't?
Council Chair, I mean, we can stay here all night going over and over this contract. It seems like it's not doable. So maybe Dave can reach out to the administration and to the mayor, see exactly what's the next step to fix this.
He doesn't answer.
Reply to
So what's the process then?
Well, as Dave has already stated, we have already filed for mediation. We're moving forward with this. And the next step after mediation, if we can't come to an agreement, would be arbitration. And going to arbitration with a signed ratified TA by the city and our membership. So.
I agree heartily, Councilman Ahmad. I mean, it's done. I share everyone's frustration, but
Did the mayor sign it?
No, he did not.
Who signed it?
Chief Swope and Roger Farina as the city
When did
representative.
Swope leave? End of December, right?
End of December, yeah.
Yes, I
January
believe that is
6th, I
correct.
think. January 6th.
It was around that
Funny,
time.
brother,
We
because,
ratified it just prior to his departure from the department.
I mean, guys, all I can do is say,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that it got to this, but
It is like definitely hurt.
it'd probably be smart to not even discuss, to even get into discussion as the police chief.
Yeah.
You weren't involved, you weren't there.
I'm just throwing a suggestion out here.
I would not give any, I mean, it's up to you. Go at your own will.
So we've talked about this, myself and Brian and some members. So there's an amount of money, right, that we're obviously short, where we can't approve this contract, correct? Is it $1 million?
This is just for the back pay for this year.
Just for the back pay?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not even
That's just
talking.
back
So let's say this contract, we put this thing on hold, come July 1st, we come to agreement and say, July 1st, we'll honor this. Is that doable?
You're negotiating right now, man.
No?
Yeah, we can't
Look
negotiate.
at David's eyes. Look at David's eyes.
We're not
Look at
that,
David's eyes.
we're not the administration here. We're not the
That's
administration.
just, a former interim chief lost his job because they assumed he was doing what you're doing right now. Let's be careful for a second.
that's the $64,000 question, but yeah, we can't get into that now.
So the mediation piece takes a minute. And there's another step after that. Mediation is an extension of bargaining. We're a little bit hamstrung. The normal procedure would be that this would come before council, you can reject it. Then we go back and then figure it out. I don't know if that puts you in a tough spot or not, but as Brian has indicated, we've already filed for mediation.
Wait, what was your recommendation?
The traditional path in these things is that this would come before council.
We
And you say,
tabled
We
it.
don't have the money. You don't have to agree to the tentative agreement.
Yeah.
Right, procedurally. Then you would send whoever you're going to send to come back to talk to us, and then we bargain some more.
David, I want to tell you, we walk on eggshells on this, because let me tell you what has happened, Dave.
I got a pretty good idea, sir.
They point their finger and they say, you guys did it. You
The
approved.
council approved it.
You denied it. You did this. They constantly point their fingers and say, council denied it. Council approved it. Oh, you should have seen, they should have approved you. Council should have approved you.
But Council Chair also, Roger Farina is now a corporation counsel. He had no authority to negotiate.
Ryan, I'm sorry, man. Well, I mean, I know that you guys have Dave behind you guys, and look, there's no secret, there's going to be a new administration moving in, whomever that person is, he or she. I mean, I think you're going to have to, sit at the round table again and have to renegotiate. And that's just what it seems like from what they're saying to us, but sucks because I can only imagine you and your union thinking, this is amazing. Like, this is life-changing for a lot of people's families and, putting things over. Imagine the conversation, some of the men and women in the police department saying, hey, we're about to get this thing. We got a tentative agreement. We just agreed to this right before Christmas. You guys are probably all celebrating. Here comes the New Year's, we're thinking, oh my God, let's go on this extra vacation, eventually I'm gonna get this extra pay. And this whole time, it was a facade. It was fake.
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, it was very contentious between the members and voting for this, right? I mean, we did, as Dave stated, we gave many hard concessions that would have affected us on a day-to-day basis. But in turn, we were given a financial offer, which ultimately passed a contract. And my members, they planned on that money.
100%.
We believed this entire time, as was stated at the table, that we were negotiating in good faith as we are supposed to under the law. And to find out that that may not be the case is extremely disheartening. And it's kind of at a point where do we go from here, right?
So Dave, what would be your recommendation? Look, I just want to be honest. I think this council here stands firmly with this police department. And we're not going to get any recommendation from Roger. We're not going to get any recommendation, with all due respect, from the chief of staff. We're not going to get any recommendation from the mayor. What would you recommend us to do?
We're gonna go to mediation. Wanda Mays is the mediator. It's been assigned by the state. We've sent you notice of such.
Not us.
No, Ken Wilson, whomever.
The city's attorney.
Yep, you're the agents for the employer is the term I use. That's who these people are. They're agents for you. So whoever it is you want to bargain or go to mediation, tell somebody. We'll be there, Brian and I, Officer Kokoy, and a couple others. We'll be there. But as Brian has indicated, this is the starting point. This is not,
So, are you allowed to help us or no?
You can't afford me, sorry. So I guess that if I'm you.
There you go.
This mediation is going to occur. Maybe figure out amongst yourselves who you want to bargain with us, and then send them to mediation.
That's the thing, though, is they don't notify us or tell us any of this stuff.
No, we're not allowed.
We're not allowed to.
Yeah,
write.
and
I think you
also-
can probably talk to Brian anytime you want. Seems to be a good fellow. It's not very hard to get a hold of.
No, it's the administration. Anytime we
I
try
can't help
to
you with
enter
that, sir.
anything, they say it's illegal,
I can't help you
against
with
the
that.
law.
I mean, my question is whether we reject this contract or not, you guys moving forward with whatever you have.
Yeah, no, the clock's
So that's it, I mean-
ticking, the meter's running.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the administration know what's going on now, and they have to move forward whatever they need to do. And
What administration?
Oh, yeah, it goes to mediation, who the.
Yeah, the Michigan Employment Relations Commission sent a notice to the city of Dearborn Heights. Mayor Bazzi is the point of contact.
The mayor's
on that
checked out a
document.
long time ago.
We have documentary evidence to prove.
Point of order, Councilman.
We've been in communication with. So we're going to be ready to go, Brian and I.
There
That's all I can
was
tell you.
a mayor's assistant who went to negotiations with the former mayor, that there's a lot of talk about that. I mean, so this isn't the first time, unfortunately.
All right, guys, does anybody have anything else here? Anything from any of the officers back there? Any closing remarks, other than chief?
Yeah, let's hear from the chief.
Brian, do you have any
Brian?
numbers for next, like, I know $1 million for this year, what about next year? Do you have any? No? Okay. I know she
Michelle
mentioned-
and Shannon have it. They actually they took me through it.
We'll do a public safety millage.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand you guys can only do so much, and your hands are tied when it comes to where we go from here. All I can tell you, like Dave has already reiterated, we're going to be ready, and we're going to do what we have to do to continue our negotiations and get whatever the best deal is for our members. That's all I can
We're
say.
here to help, but like you said, there's so much we could do.
Sure.
As council.
Honestly, Brian, with respect, I think this was a setup.
All right, come on, let's leave the conspiracies out
No,
of
it's
this.
not a
now.
conspiracy. I think this was a setup.
Yeah, maybe, but we can have the discussion outside of business. The study session, I'm going to open it up to the public. Do you have any comments from any of the public? Anyone in person? Anyone on Zoom?
No, no, and no.
Sue K. I think it's Sue Kaminsky. Please unmute her. Please state your name, the city you reside in, and the street that you live on.
Hi, everybody. Sue Kaminsky and Amboy, Dearborn Heights. First off, I'm sorry for all parties, police, union, and for council. It is within the council's right that they can demand that the mayor appear. If he fails to do so, then you can contact the police. At this point in my opinion, I think that you're gonna have to force this because you are put in a absolute no-win situation. And the council and our police deserve better, and I am sorry for all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Vince, please state your name, the city you reside in, and the street that you live on.
You already said my name. I live in Dearborn Heights. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There's got to be some sort of legal action that we can go after the mayor for false information, whatever it is. I think we got to nail his ass to the ground because he's nothing but a freaking scumbag.
All right, point of order.
And I've told you, many of you council members, what was going to happen with this deal in the past, and I have other council meetings when they were at the high school. Go back and look at them. Have a good night, gentlemen. And I
Thank
hope
you.
to God that we can come up with the funding to keep our police department. Because I swear to God, you don't want another accident like we lived with Jason. We don't need another officer on the streets dead. These guys need everything that they need. I'm seriously, somebody got to go after the mayor. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Mark?
How you doing, man? Please state your name, the city you reside in, and the street that you live on.
Margaret King, Mayfair Street, Dearborn Heights. I just want to say that my heart bleeds for us as a city. We deserve better, and our Dearborn Heights officers deserve better. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Anyone else? Seeing none, meeting is over. It's not adjourned because we were not in official session, but meeting is over. Thank you.